Hello, my name is David Barron. I've been doing hypnosis for nearly 2 decades. And this training, you're going to be learning what I believe is probably the most powerful and direct form of authoritarian hypnosis. If you are new to hypnosis, you may be surprised to learn that there are many different types of hypnosis, and you'll also learn that there are many different styles and theories about hypnosis. So to begin, let me tell you a little bit about myself and about how I became so involved in this particular style of direct hypnosis. First of all, for years, I had been fascinated by the whole topic of hypnosis. Ever since I was a child, I do remember seeing the hypnotist at the county fair, and I longed to master that skill and to have that ability to influence people. When I first made the commitment to learn hypnosis and become a hypnotist, I introduced myself to a local hypnotist and asked him to mentor me. And he had worked in the health field for quite some time. And he told me that in order for me to really understand hypnosis, I should read the works of Milton Erickson. Now, if you're not familiar with Milton Erickson, he was the leading psychologist who used hypnosis in this particular style of hypnosis to make a huge impact in the field of psychology in the last century. His particular style of hypnosis is referred to as indirect and permissive. Starting with that, I want to describe the two basic styles of hypnosis. They are the indirect permissive style and the direct authoritarian style. The indirect permissive style of hypnosis is one that is most often talked about on the internet. It is sometimes referred to as covert hypnosis or conversational hypnosis because it does not consist of direct commands given to the hypnosis subject. So instead of giving direct instructions or commands, the instructions are only implied. A direct authoritarian hypnosis, or rather a direct authoritarian hypnotist, would give a command that sounds something like, close your eyes and focus your attention on your eyes and eyelids. Now, an indirect and permissive hypnotist would only suggest at these commands, and it would sound something like, you may notice that when you close your eyes, your attention turns to your eyes and eyelids. Now, the difference between these two types of hypnosis is that one gives the hypnosis subject direct instructions how to respond, but the permissive style of hypnosis allows the subject the possibility of not following the instructions. The benefit of the permissive style is that because there are no direct commands, there was really nothing that the hypnosis subject has to resist. The downside of the permissive style is that there is no direct testing as to whether or not the subject has followed the instructions. When I began learning hypnosis back in the late 90s, there was a huge movement toward learning the permissive style because it was the most recent and the most advanced style of hypnosis. I became very skilled at the permissive style and totally neglected learning the direct authoritarian style of hypnosis. It was only later in my career that I was introduced to the late Jeff Stevens, whose entire practice was based on the authoritarian style of hypnosis. And this is perhaps the best and most complete model of direct hypnosis that I've come across that helps people make those types of changes. Now, his main argument was that if a person is willing to call a hypnotist and give them a significant amount of money in order to effect a change which they want, there is no reason for them to resist going into hypnosis. And so, of course, as a hypnotist, they would follow the hypnotist's instructions. In fact, under the circumstances where they're giving money, wanting a change, and calling a hypnotist, they are deeply invested in the process and can very easily be hypnotized. Using direct hypnosis, the hypnotist is also able to test the subject's responsiveness and make certain that following the instructions is what they are doing and they are responding well. The direct method works very quickly and provides a very dramatic result and is unambiguous in its effectiveness. The permissive style of hypnosis is often adopted by hypnotists for the simple reason that if there are no tests, there is no possibility of failure. Now, in my opinion, a hypnotist that relies on the permissive style for that reason is acting very timid, and it's going to show in their results. Using the permissive style of hypnosis is often reported by the hypnosis subject that they knew something was taking place, but they have a hard time relating to how it responds to what they were trying to change. So subjectively, they feel like something happened, but not knowing exactly what it is. Additionally, people who go to a hypnotist expect something that seems like hypnosis, and the direct method is exactly that. With the direct method, they can be tested so that when they do, in fact, demonstrate the results, it shows and they know it. Indirect hypnosis is very good at influencing people in a very conversational manner. But when a client comes to a hypnotist for a very specific change, there's no reason to be covert or conversational. Using direct hypnosis and the authoritarian style, the result can be achieved in a very short amount of time. What you are going to be learning is a complete 10-step process that uses the direct authoritarian style of hypnosis. And it is, to my knowledge, the simplest and most complete description of this direct style of hypnosis. It will start with the theory of the conscious and the subconscious minds. We will then cover how to demonstrate yourself as an authority. This will be much more important to you than you could possibly imagine, and it will have benefits to you in other aspects of your life than just being a hypnotist. What will follow beyond that will be a very in-depth discussion and a demonstration of each of the 10 steps of the Stevens hypnosis process. You will learn that each of the steps has a purpose and a reason for being where they're at. Ultimately, you will understand that this is a complete method in itself. And once you have learned all of the 10 steps, then you have them and you can modify them and augment them in whatever way that you need to in your regular hypnosis practice. After each of the lessons, I will encourage you to send your comments and your videotapes of you doing hypnosis and share what you've learned doing this method. If you are a subscriber to the Level 2 mentoring tier of this training, all of your questions, your comments, and your videos will be shared with the rest of the people who are learning, and you will get the answers and the feedback that is designed to help you improve. Your questions and videotapes will be accompanying feedback, will be part of what I call the How to Not Suck at Hypnosis video series. And that everyone in this Level 2, this Tier 2 mentoring training, will have access to it. So now let's begin with the very first lesson. Here's where we're going to talk about the theory of the mind and the theory of hypnosis. To begin, let's understand the conscious mind and its counterpart, the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the part of the mind that focuses your attention. It is the part of your mind that you are using right now to pay attention to my words and to understand what I'm saying. The conscious mind is the latest development in that long process of evolution. And because it is the latest development, it has its own set of limitations. The conscious mind, as I mentioned, focuses your attention. And as you focus in on one thing, that attention excludes everything else. So if you're intensely focusing on my instruction, you are probably not aware of how your shoes feel at the end of your feet. Now, only now, because I mention it, are you aware of your shoes, because I directed your attention there. All of the perceptions that happen within your experience are there at a subconscious level. Your subconscious mind also includes your memories. So, for example, you may not have been thinking about the name of your very first pet, but once you think about it, you realize it's there because it's stored at a subconscious level. Within the subconscious mind is also held all of your habits and your beliefs. Your subconscious mind also includes all of your emotions. So the subconscious mind is vast compared to the conscious mind. There's often a metaphor of the iceberg, which is used to describe the difference between the conscious and subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the 90%, or the conscious mind is the 10% that is there above the surface. And the subconscious mind is the 90% below the surface. I think this is, in my opinion, a wholly inaccurate metaphor. I think it is better to consider the conscious mind as something the size of a marble, and the subconscious mind the size of the Australian continent. So, hypnosis is really designed to bypass the conscious mind and make changes directly at the subconscious level. It is therefore very good at changing habits, changing emotional responses, and building positive resources. Many different schools of hypnosis achieve this in very different ways. Some of the methods used to do this take the subject back to early childhood events that are often traumatic and are designed to have the subject reevaluate that event and learn a new response. The downside of this method of regression is that it forces the hypnosis subject to re-experience the trauma. And for the hypnotist, and certainly in my experience, it is a little bit messy. And what that means is, you have to deal with a subject that is often crying, flailing about, and screaming. Regression to early childhood traumas is also completely unnecessary. To get the same result using the Stevens method, it does it very simply by speaking directly to the subconscious mind, and as it does that, giving it an instruction on how to respond differently, and finally asking for a confirmation that the change has been made. This is often referred to as the golden box, where all change takes place. Now, please take some time to submit your questions about the subject of the subconscious and the conscious mind in the area below. I want to move on now to an entire concept of being an authority and applying your authority to this method of hypnosis. Let's begin by understanding the entire concept of authority. First, being an authority does not mean being a bully or being a boss. It does not mean that you have to be mean either. Being an authority means that through your behaviors, through your words, and in how you treat people, you elicit followership from other people. In other words, they respond by deferring to you and wanting to follow you. You can start by just recalling someone who you trusted, who you would consider to be a good leader. If no one comes to mind, then just imagine the type of person that you would want to follow. If no one immediately comes to mind, consider the feeling of trust and authority. That is the feeling you want to elicit from people. One of the ways that I instill that feeling of authority with the clients I work with can also be very useful here. Keep in mind, we all want to do the right thing. It would be nice if we had in our minds a voice that we trusted, that when it told us the the right thing to do, we would just immediately do it. This is a very nice concept, but it's also something that we seldom put into practice, and that's what we're going to do right now. Begin by thinking for a moment of the type of voice that you would willingly follow. Now, this could be a voice of someone that you know. It could be a voice you simply create in your mind. So it could be a man's voice or a woman's voice. It could speak to you loud and commandingly, or just soft and passionately. So when it told you, focus in, you would just immediately pay attention, drop everything. Take a moment to just imagine, to create, to engineer exactly the kind of voice that you would want to follow. The type of voice that if it spoke to you, you would immediately do what it would say. Now, once you have created that voice, understand that's the type of feeling that you want to bring forth in others. And for the sake of hypnosis, I'm going to give you just a few additional pointers, some bullet points on how to do that when you're doing hypnosis, during the hypnosis session where you're acting as the hypnotist with a client. So the first is, remember to give instructions and not suggestions. Great example is to simply tell people, sit here, fill out this form. Make it an imperative, make it a command. Don't be bossy, just tell them to do it. So you would say, tell me what name you want me to call you, or put your feet flat on the floor, and just expect it to be followed. These will get the subject comfortable and familiar with following your instructions. They have a completely different tone than simply asking, would you fill out this form? Or could you sit over here? Those are phrased as questions, so make them directives, make them commands. Once again, I'm going to follow back to the whole idea of think of hypnosis as giving instructions, not suggestions. I made a whole point in my life practice of hypnosis to never use the word suggestion, as in hypnotic suggestion, because a suggestion implies you don't have to follow it. After all, I'm just suggesting it. However, if I give an instruction, there's an entirely different implication. An instruction implies that it's part of a process, and that as you follow the instructions, you get a result at the end of that process. So always think of what you're doing as giving instructions, not suggestions. The third bullet point: make every attempt to demonstrate your authority through the atmosphere and the presentation of your surroundings. This means you can imagine for a moment what it is like to be in a very well-organized, professional doctor's office. Everything that the hypnosis subject is to perceive in the environment you're in with them must have a purpose and a reason. The atmosphere of your office, it could be sparse and sterile, but it could equally be warm and inviting. But it has to look professional. Consider that. Your authority has to be implied, not stated outright, but implied in everything the subject will experience when they're with you, even to the point of the intake form that you hand them. So consider that. And the very last point is your own appearance and presentation. It has to be impeccable. That does not mean you have to wear a suit and tie, but it does mean you have to dress as though you are a professional and an authority in your field. Some people will put on a lab coat just to appear more clinical. And of course, you don't have to do that. How you dress to demonstrate your authority is entirely up to you. It is just something you have to consider. as part of your presentation. Now, there are also much more long-term actions and behaviors you can do to enhance your authority. They are all centered around this very simple concept of having your act together. And for example, just consider the people in your life who have their life in order and can speak and act with a congruence that is just unambiguous. So if they were to instruct you to do something, at a very subconscious level, you would perceive it as the right thing to do and you would follow their instructions. Just consider for a moment how much authority you would personally feel if you were completely out of debt, your bills were paid, you had very secure housing, every part of your house was clean and well organized, and you were surrounded by a caring and a loving family. All of those things together would impart in you a feeling of authority because you have your life together. Now, obviously, this is not something you can fix and simply move on from. It is something that you will have to work on constantly, and it is an ongoing process. It's a rewarding process too. In this step of building yourself as an authority, it will be something that you have to return to on a regular basis. And you can start by simply getting a pen and a paper and making a list of all the ways that you can better get your entire life in order. Now, as you build this list, record also how that would affect you emotionally, as personally as it would affect you, how it would affect your interactions with others as you get your life in order. What you will find is that you will feel much more secure and less distracted. It will also be easier for you to speak with authority. So that's something very important, and there's a lot more you can go into with that concept of authority, and I encourage you to dig deeply into it. I really hope this very first introduction has been of benefit to you. This is, of course, just going to be the very first in the instruction of how to become a very skilled hypnotist. In the next video, you will get a very brief overview of the 10 steps of hypnosis using the Stevens method. Videos that follow will describe in more detail each of these steps and bring them together as a whole. Please leave your comments, your questions, and I will answer them in these videos. I will respond to your questions and comments in much more detail for those of you who are subscribed to the Tier 2 mentoring training. Now, in this second tier mentoring training, you'll get much more personalized guidance, and you'll also be part of a collective of some very well motivated, highly intelligent people who are very eager to master this method, the Stevens hypnosis method. It is my goal to have some of the very best trained hypnotists in the world using this method, and ultimately I hope you and I will be working together to make the world a much better place. If you find the additional information about the trainings, you can find that in the information below. Please, I look forward to working with you, and thank you so much for taking part.